Short History of Wales by Owen M. Edwards. Introduction and Chapter 1. Introduction. This little book is meant for those who have never read any Welsh history before. It is not taken for granted that the reader knows either Latin or Welsh. A fuller outline may be read in the Story of Wales, in the Story of the Nation series, and a still fuller one in the Welsh People of Rhys and Bryn Mawr Jones. Of fairly small and cheap books in various periods, I may mention Rhys's Celtic Britain, Owen Roscommell's Flamebearers of Welsh History, Henry Owen's Harold the Welshman, Bradley's Owen Glendower, Newell's Welsh Church, and Rhee's Protestant Nonconformity in Wales. More elaborate and expensive books are Sealam's Village Community and Tribal System in Wales, Clark's Medieval Military Architecture, Morris's Welsh Wars of Edward I, Southall's Wales and Her Language. In writing local history, A.N. Palmer's History of Wrexham and companion volumes are models. If you turn to a library, you will find much information about Wales and social England, the Dictionary of National Biography, the publications of the Cymry and other societies. You will find articles of great value and interest over the names of F.H. Haverfield, J.W. Willis Bund, Egerton Phillimore, the Honorable Miss Bukeli Owen, Gwenherian Gwynedd, Henry Owen, the late David Lewis, T.F. Tout, J.E. Lloyd, D. Lulifer, Thomas W. Llewellyn, Williams J. Arthur, Price J.H. Davis, J. Bollinger, Edward Owen, Hubert Hall, Hugh Williams, R.A. Roberts, A.W. Wade Evans, E.A. Lewis. These are only a few out of the many who are now working in the rich and unexplored field of Welsh history. I put down the names only of those I had to consult in writing a small book like this. The sources are mostly in Latin or Welsh. Many volumes of chronicles, charters, and historical poems have been published by the government, by the Corporation of Cardiff, by J. Gwenogurvan Evans, by H. D. Gray Birch, and others. But so far, we have not had the interesting chronicles and poems translated into English, as they ought to be, and published in well-edited, not too expensive volumes. Owen Edwards, Lincoln College, Oxford. Chapter 1. Wales. Wales is a row of hills rising between the Irish Sea on the west and the English Plains on the east. If you come from the west along the sea, or if you cross the Severe or the Dee from the east, you will see that Wales is a country all by itself. It rises grandly and proudly. If you are a stranger, you will think of it as Wales, a strange country. If you are Welsh, you will think of it as Cymry, a land of brothers. The geologist will tell you how Wales was made. The geographer will tell you what it is like now. The historian will tell you what its people have done and what they are. All three will tell you that it is a very interesting country. The rocks of Wales are older and harder than the rocks of the plains, and as you travel from the south to the north, the older and harder they become. The highest mountains of Wales and some of its hills have crests of the very oldest and hardest rock, granite, porphyry, and basalt. These rocks are given their form by fire, but the greater part of the country is made of rocks formed by water, still the oldest of their kind. In the northwest, center, and west, about 2/3 of the whole country, the rocks are chiefly slate and shale. In the southeast, they are chiefly old red sandstone. In the northeast, but chiefly in the south, they are limestone and coal. Its rocks give Wales its famous scenery, its rugged peaks, its romantic glens, its rushing rivers. They are also its chief wealth: granite, slate, limestone, coal, and loads of still more precious metals, iron, lead, silver, and gold, run through them. The highest mountain in Wales is Snowdon, which is 3,570 feet above the level of the sea. For every 300 feet we go up, the temperature becomes 1 degree cooler. At about 1,000 feet, it becomes too cold for wheat. At about 1,500, it becomes too cold for corn. At about 2,000, it is too cold for cattle. Mountain ponies graze still higher. The bleak upper slopes are left to the small and valuable Welsh sheep. There are 3 belts of soil around the hills: arable, pasture, and sheep run, one above the other. The arable land forms about 1/3 of the country. It lies along the sea border on the slopes above the Dee and the Severe, and in the deep valleys of the rivers which pierce far inland, the Severn, Wee, Usk, Towie, Tevy, Dovey, Conway, and Clwyd. The pasture land, the land of small mountain farms, forms the middle third. It is a land of tiny valleys and small plains, ever fostered by the warm, moist west wind. Above it, the remaining third is stormy sheep run, wide green slopes, and wild moors. steep glens, and rocky heights. From northwest to southeast, the line of high hills runs. In the northwest corner, Snowdon towers among a number of heights over 3,000 feet. At its feet to the northwest, the Isle of Anglesey lies, the peninsula of Lienne, with a central ridge of rock, and slopes of pasture lands runs to the southwest. To the east, beyond the Conway, lie the Hiraethog Mountains, with lower heights and wider reaches. Further east again, over the Clyde, are the still lower hills of Flint. To the south, 30 miles as the crow flies, over the Slate Country, the Berwins are seen clearly. For a peak among these, Cader Bronwen, 2,537 feet, or the Aran, 2,970 feet, or the Cader Idris, 2,929 feet, we look east and south over the hilly slopes of the upper Sevier country. Another 30 miles to the south rises Green Plinlimmon, 2,469 feet. From it, we see the high moorlands of central Wales sloping to Cardigan Bay on the west and to the valley of the Sevier, now a lordly English river on the east. 40 miles south, the Black Mountain, 2,630 feet, rises beyond the Wye, and the Brecon Beacons, 2,910 feet, beyond the Usk. West of these, the hills fade away into the broad peninsula of Divot. Southwards, we look over hills of coal and iron to the pleasant sea-fringed plain of Blent. On the north and the west, the sea is shallow. In some places, it is under 10 fathoms for 10 miles from the shore, and under 20 fathoms for 20 miles. Tales of drowned lands are told, of the sands of Lavon, of the feasts of Aberdovey, but the sea is a kind of neighbor. Its soft, warm winds bathe the hills with life, and the great sweep of the big Atlantic waves onto the river mouths help our commerce. Holyhead, Milford Haven, Swansea, Newport, Barry, and Cardiff, now one of the chief ports in the world, can welcome the largest vessels afloat. The herring is plentiful on the west coast, and trout and salmon in the rivers.